Hello, Virgo. I'm Anna, and welcome to your daily tarot reading. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you're doing well. And for today's reading, we'll see what the energies and the messages are for the day. There's something in the air around you right now, something that doesn't quite have a shape yet, something that hasn't found its words. It may feel like a weight you've been carrying without knowing where it came from, like a door somewhere inside you that never fully closed, no matter how many times you may have tried to shut it. And I need you to stop for a moment. Not tomorrow, not when things feel easier, now, right here, in whatever room you're sitting in, with whatever version of yourself showed up today, the tired one, the numb one, the one still pretending things are fine. Because there's something that someone hasn't been able to say to you. Maybe they've started the sentence 100 times in their head. Maybe the words get as far as the throat and then something stops them. A fear, perhaps, or something older than fear. Something that sits in the chest like a stone that's been there so long it almost feels like part of the architecture. But I'm going to tell you, so listen carefully. There are people who move through your life like weather. Some of them pass quickly, a brief pressure, a shift in temperature, and then they're gone, and the sky clears, and you almost forget they were there at all. But then there are others who settle, who change the atmosphere of an entire season, who leave a particular kind of quiet behind them when they go, the kind of quiet that almost sounds like something. You may know the person I'm talking about. You may have been trying not to think about them, or maybe you've been thinking about them so constantly that it started to feel like background noise, always there beneath everything, like a frequency your body learned to live with, even when your mind refused to acknowledge it. And here's what that person hasn't been able to tell you. They carry you not in the way people say it lightly, not in the way it sounds in songs or on greeting cards. There may be something heavier to it than that, something more inconvenient, something they possibly didn't ask for and couldn't put down even when they tried. It's possible that in certain moments, ordinary moments, the kind that shouldn't mean anything, something about you surfaces in them, a sound, a phrase, the way light falls at a particular hour, and for a second, maybe less than a second, something shifts in them, something they can't quite explain and probably wouldn't if they could, because saying it would make it real. And making it real would mean facing something they've been carefully, quietly, deliberately avoiding. You've been in a kind of in between, haven't you? Not fully here, not fully gone from what was. There may be mornings where you wake up and for 1/2 second before the day rushes in, everything feels normal, like nothing happened. Like the version of your life you had before is still intact, still waiting for you just on the other side of consciousness. And then it comes that settling, that slow, heavy recognition, the way reality reassembles itself around you like walls closing in gently, without urgency, because it knows you're not going anywhere. This is what a separation does to a person that no one really talks about. It doesn't just remove someone from your life, it removes a whole version of you. The you that existed in relation to them, the you that had certain habits, certain rhythms, certain reasons to do ordinary things. That version of you doesn't have anywhere to go now. So it lingers, it sits in corners, it shows up at strange hours. And maybe you've been wondering whether any of this is happening on the other side too, whether they've felt any of it, whether the silence between you has any texture for them, or whether it's simply silence, clean, uncomplicated, final. That uncertainty may be one of the hardest things to sit with, harder perhaps than grief with a clear shape, because at least grief with a clear shape knows what it is. This unnamed thing keeps shifting, keeps asking questions it doesn't answer. So let me tell you what may be true on the other side of that silence. There could be a kind of restlessness, not the loud kind, not pacing, not dramatic, the quiet kind, the kind that makes someone reach for their phone and put it back down 17 times without knowing why. The kind that makes a familiar song feel suddenly unbearable, not because it's sad, but because it's specific, because it belongs to something, because it belongs to a time that feels both very close and completely unreachable. It's possible they've replayed things, not to torture themselves, or maybe a little to torture themselves, the way people do when they're trying to understand something that resists understanding, turning a moment over and over, looking at it from every angle, wondering if it could have gone differently, wondering if the version where it went differently still exists somewhere in some parallel arrangement of choices neither of them made. And there may be things they wished they'd said. Not grand things necessarily, not speeches. Sometimes it's smaller than that. A quieter acknowledgement. Something like, I saw you. I see you still. I'm not entirely sure what to do with that. But the words didn't come. Or they came at the wrong time. Or the moment passed the way moments do, swiftly, without ceremony, leaving only the faint outline of what could have been said in its place. Here's what I want you to consider. The ending of something, a relationship, a chapter, a version of closeness that felt irreplaceable doesn't necessarily mean the feeling ends with it. Feelings are not always polite enough to follow the timeline. They don't always get the message when things close. They linger in the body long after the mind has tried to move on. They show up in dreams that feel too real and leave a residue that takes the whole morning to shake. They arrive in the middle of laughing at something unrelated, a sudden, inexplicable pull, like gravity asserting itself from a direction you weren't expecting. And this may be what's happening for them. Not because the story is simple, not because everything would be different if they could just say the thing they haven't said, but because some connection, some specific, particular, unrepeatable connections don't dissolve cleanly. They change form, they go underground, they become something harder to name but no less present. Something that surfaces when the defenses are down, when the night is too quiet, when someone else says something that almost sounds like something you used to say, and the resemblance is close enough to ache, but not close enough to be the real thing. You've been strong in ways that probably haven't been acknowledged. And I don't mean strong in the way people perform strength, the composed face, the fine, I'm fine, the keeping it together in public. I mean the quieter kind of strength, the kind that shows up in the simple act of continuing, of making coffee, of answering messages, of being present in a life that feels slightly rearranged, slightly off its axis, slightly less familiar than it used to. That kind of endurance is rarely celebrated, but it's real, and it's possible that somewhere in the architecture of all this, in the space between what was and what is, something is noticing that about you, even if it can't say so yet. Even if the words are still somewhere between the thought and the throat, there's a particular kind of person who processes things in private, who doesn't broadcast what they feel, who holds things close, not out of coldness, but out of something more complicated, a kind of guardedness that may have been learned a long time ago in circumstances that have nothing to do with you, a protection mechanism that became a habit, that became over time almost indistinguishable from the person themselves. And from the outside, that can look like distance. It can look like indifference. It can look like they've moved on with an ease that feels almost cruel given what was shared. But appearances carry their own kind of uncertainty. What looks like stillness on the surface may have an entirely different texture underneath. What looks like absence may be, in some cases, a form of overwhelm, the feeling of having too much to say and no safe way to say it, of opening a door and not knowing what would come out if it opened all the way. So they keep it closed, or mostly closed, with just enough space for something to breathe through. I want you to think about something. The moments that stayed with you, the specific ones, the ones that surface without invitation, those moments existed for both of you. They were shared. Whatever meaning they carried wasn't one-sided, even if the way it's being processed now looks different on the outside. Shared moments don't retroactively belong to only one person. They live in both bodies, both sets of memories, both nervous systems that learned for a time to be near each other. And that learning doesn't simply erase itself because something changed. It may recede, it may quiet down, but there could be traces of it still embedded in ways that don't ask permission to remain. This is what they haven't said to you. Not in those words, maybe not in any words, but in the way something lingers. In the way your name may still occupy a particular corner of their interior life, even now, even in the silence, even in the distance that has grown between where you both are. You don't need to do anything with this. I want to be clear about that. This isn't a call to action. It's not a push toward any particular direction, toward reaching out, toward closing off, toward any specific decision about what comes next. It's simply an offering, a possibility laid gently beside you, that the silence isn't necessarily empty, that what looks like an ending from where you're standing may have a different texture from other angles you can't quite access from where you are right now in this particular moment, in this particular version of things. And maybe that doesn't fix anything. Maybe it doesn't change the practical shape of your days, or the way certain evenings still feel slightly too large for one person, or the specific ache of adjusting to an absence that still hasn't fully settled into ordinary space. But perhaps it softens something, just slightly, the way light shifts. When a cloud moves, not dramatic, not transformative, but enough to make the same landscape look, for a moment, less final. Because here is what I want to leave you with. You are not carrying this alone, even if it feels that way, even if the weight is entirely in your hands right now, even if the other side of this is quiet in ways that are hard to interpret. There may be things in motion that aren't yet visible. There may be words forming somewhere that haven't found their moment, feelings that haven't found their shape, a courage that's still gathering itself slowly, the way certain things gather, without announcement, without timeline, without any guarantee of arrival. And in the meantime, in this strange, suspended, in between space where you currently live, you are allowed to feel all of it. The missing, the confusion, the anger that appears sometimes without warning and doesn't always have a clean target, the tenderness that has nowhere to go, the hope that you maybe feel slightly ashamed of, because hope in this context feels vulnerable in a way that's hard to protect yourself from. Feel all of it, because it means something was real, and real things, genuinely, specifically, unrepeatable real things, deserve to be felt fully, not managed, not minimized, not rushed toward resolution before they're ready. Just felt